You got some problems that you wanna solve? Then let's chat. That job getting on your nerves? Then let's chat. Girl, you know I can relate, so let's chat. Cause I'ma tell you what the bottom line is.
I'ma tell you what the bottom line is. I'ma tell you what the bottom line is. I'ma tell you what the bottom.
It's your girl Cece. I'm your hostess with the mostest.
I'ma tell you what the bottom line is.
Hey everybody, welcome to another episode of The Bottom Line Is. It's your girl Cece, the hostess with the mostest. And today's topic is a subject, as many of you know, that is near and dear to my heart. It's involving caregiving. Many of you know that I have been a caregiver for 15 years, full-time, almost as much as my career in HR as well. And it definitely takes a lot of sacrifice and support to make that happen. And sometimes you can become a caregiver overnight and not even expect it. So today's episode is going to be about balance and act. At some point, we all balance a different role in our life, whether we're a parent, we are a career professional, you name it, we all do it. Everybody wears at least 1 to 2 hats or more in their daily life. So we're going to just talk about some ways to help you with that. And make sure you like, comment, and subscribe. And we're going to go ahead and get to it. Today's guest is Elizabeth, and she is the CEO of Happy Healthy Caregiver. I'm so happy that she's on with me. And I am going to let her give a full introduction about her and her company.
Thank you, Cece. I'm so glad to be here. I love talking to caregivers. Caregivers are my people. Hopefully this is going to help somebody, our conversation tonight. I'm Elizabeth. I started Happy Healthy Caregiver because like you, Cece, and like many others, I felt really overwhelmed and lost and isolated and confused and resentful and angry about my caregiving situation. And I was what you call a sandwich generation caregiver. So squeezed between caring for kids and caring for older adults at the same time while working full time as well. And my husband was simultaneously squeezed caring for his mom. We really felt completely lost and overwhelmed by it. And I just kept thinking, why is this so hard? I was working in IT at the time and like product management. I live in Georgia now. I lived most of my life outside of Atlanta, but I studied broadcast journalism at Penn State. And so writing was always a strategy for me, and talking and storytelling. So I started writing 10 years ago. So to Happy Healthy Caregivers, 10 years old this year. And writing was really what helped me kind of start to process. I know we're going to kind of get into some of these strategies, but then over the years, I've layered on different things to help family caregivers. I just really felt like I had no business starting a business during this time. I had plenty on my plate, but it was an outlet for me. And it was also helping me greatly, talking about it and sharing about it and helping other people connect. So over the years, it's, elevated to different things. I started podcasting as well with Happy Healthy Caregiver, started coaching family caregivers, and then really fell into professional speaking and working with companies, working with organizations. I enjoyed it because it was a way to kind of share the self-care strategies and the messages to groups of people. So scaling this, because there's so many of us, 53 million, at least in the United States alone. So that's really where I focus a lot of my time now, is on professional speaking and, still supporting caregivers through the podcast, newsletter, and other outlets.
No, for sure. And thank you for that introduction. And you hit on a really good point that it's so many of us, and people don't realize that, but now we're dealing with the baby boomer generation. And as they're getting older, trying to provide healthcare for them. And, let's face it, people still want to thrive. And sometimes people don't want to make that sacrifice, whether it's sacrificing their time, their finances, or anything. And, it's not an easy job, by no means. I was just having this conversation with someone. I often feel like sometimes people, I don't want to say belittle, but they downgrade the role of a caregiver, and
until they're doing it, they don't get it.
Exactly. I always want to say, well, how about you go ahead and do it for a day? And let me know how that works out for you. Like, let me know. And
because I think they can't see it. It's like there's so much invisible labor. I know you work in HR with the invisible, like there's so much that we're doing that is, people just see the little tip of the iceberg, right? And then there's all this stuff. And then people are like, oh, it must be so rewarding to care for your person. It's like, well, if that was all it was, that would be maybe one thing, but it's
Right.
not. It's, getting prescriptions, carting them around to doctor's appointments, researching, staying on the phone for hours, trying to navigate
Make appointment,
finances.
all of that
Yes, take
stuff.
care of their home, their
Right.
finances.
It's
Yeah.
like doing the same thing that you do for yourself, but for another person,
Yes.
essentially. And I always tell my friends, especially the ones with kids, you know, your child is going to grow up to be more independent, while my child, since we all revert back to childhood, as my grandfather used to say, will grow up to become more dependent.
Dependent.
You know,
Yes.
and it's going to require more labor on my part. And again, it's just not easy from a finance level.
Mhm.
And I do have a previous podcast in my season 1 where I talk about some financial strategies, because I think that's the biggest, maybe not the biggest gripe, but one of the biggest gripes
It's a huge
for
pain
caregivers.
point.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Because, sometimes you make too little, or you don't, make just over, the mark to try to get some assistance. And you can't do it on by yourself. And then it's like, well, if you don't work, then how can you pay for
Yeah.
one's bill? So
And
again, it's
even if
like,
you qualify, as you see, as you know, it's like it's a gritty job to get that aid and to get those resources and to navigate that. I mean, I know in Georgia, I think I'd heard that the wait list for that is like 7,000 people are on that. So you're waiting for it. In the meantime, you've got to make it happen. You're figuring it out. And so you either are, have to private pay for things, or
right.
you're waiting it out and hopefully, and then there's this huge chunk of people in the middle that are, I know we're thumbs downing.
I know. I don't know why it keeps
It's
popping
me.
up.
I talk with my hands and I'm like, thumbs down. But I think a lot of people don't realize too, until they're in it, that long Medicare, which people get when they are 65, that does not pay for long-term care. That might pay for like a short rehab thing. But
20 or 21 days that you can be in rehab with Medicare for them to pay.
yeah. So there's no long-term care. There's no assisted living, long-term care, home care that's coming into the house. That's all out of pocket if you're not qualifying for stuff. And my mom lived nearby in an assisted living, and I think that's
Mhm.
another myth that people think that, oh, well, she's got people taking care of her, and I'm like,
Yep.
listen, it is still so much work. Like we were just talking about before we started recording about the calls, you know,
Yes.
all the calls that my mom would make to interrupt, while I was working, while I was sleeping. People weren't doing what they were supposed to do there, and so teaching her how to advocate for herself,
Right.
and and she was not used to kind of like, she wanted on-demand care. She wanted it the way she
Yeah,
wanted it.
that one-on-one care.
Yeah. She didn't want to shower at 8 a.m. when they could work her in on Monday, Wednesday, Friday. She wanted to shower like we want to shower when we want to. So it was a lot. And then of course, grieving my dad and I was feeling bad about her being over there. And so trying to make it happy for her, like feeling like I could do something to make her happier and healthier, like realizing, I think caregiving, the big lesson for me was so much is really just out of our control.
Yeah, no, for sure. And something you hit on with assisted living, so many people, when their loved ones get sick and they don't want to make that sacrifice, they feel as though it's just easier to put them in assisted living or a nursing home. And I'm here to tell you, that's not always the best solution.
No, we ended up
That's
taking my mom
really
out.
best
Yeah.
solution. Yeah, it doesn't work. They're short staffed. And I mean, I know we didn't discuss this, but it's so many things now in the news about people in those facilities abusing,
Oh,
the client.
yeah.
And I was
Skilled
just reading
nursing
an
in
article.
particular.
Yeah, I was just reading that earlier, and I got completely angry. If you know that you don't have the patience, you should know your limits. Don't go into that field. And it's unfortunate that it's such an easy field for people to get into. But it's like, if you don't have the compassion or the patience, why put yourself through that?
Yeah, they're desperate. I mean, there's a fellow podcaster, Love Conquers All. Her name's Susie Singer Carter. She's actually creating a documentary called
Oh,
No Country for Old People, and
mhm.
it's about exactly what you're talking about all the neglect. And it's going to be a tough one. It's going to be a tough one to watch, but I think it's going to be really important for kind of to peel back the layers to see what's going on there.
Yeah, and like you said, I mean, you couldn't continue to, watch the non-care that your loved one was getting, unfortunately.
And
Uh,
we're paying big money for her.
exactly.
I
Assisted
mean,
livings are not cheap. And I also had an assisted living experience. We did a trial weekend. That's where I will never do it again.
yeah.
Like,
I mean,
we
we
had a
ended up
seizure. I
trying a
was like, I will
second
never do it.
one. It was the second one was better, and I learned
Right.
a lot. I coach people on this, like finding the right assisted living.
Right.
Because I'm hoping there are good ones that are out there. I
Yeah.
believe that there are. And then, but ultimately we took my mom out, and she ended up living with my older sister for the, last 6 years, I think, 4 years of her life. And the last two bedridden. And so then it was like my role then was to become more of a support caregiver for my sister while
Mhm.
she was doing that. So, lots of different hats, lots of different roles, whether you're a remote caregiver, you're in the home, they're down the street, there's lots to do. We'll never
Yeah,
be bored.
you're right about that. There's so
Yeah.
many roles. So, and even when they're in facilities, you still have to like manage their care and go to the meetings and still go visit. Anytime I love them within a rehab, I would still go every day just to check in on things, medication
Mhm.
management, etc. And just all of these things that we're talking about and no matter what kind of caregiver you are, like you said, remote, live-in, etc., that can easily lead to burnout. You know,
Oh,
you're running on autopilot all the time, just like you do as a parent. Just keep going, 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 like the Energizer Bunny. And one day you just realize, oh my gosh, like I don't know if I can do this anymore.
yeah.
And so, go ahead.
I mean, I do think like it's a little bit like the boil and the frog analogy. Like
Mhm.
none of us would jump into the boiling water; we would jump right out. But
Right.
with caregiving, like you think you can like muscle and power through it, and
Hmm.
maybe you can for like a short stint of something. But the average caregiver is a caregiver for 4.5 years, and that's just the average. If you're talking about a dementia caregiver or something like that, it's typically a lot longer than that. Um, and I certainly got to that point where my health and happiness was suffering, didn't recognize who I was like looking at in the mirror. I used to be like a really positive person, and before that, and I just felt like kind of Eeyore like, and
Yeah.
I didn't want to do anything that it used to bring me joy, and um that I would cry very easily. I'm trying to think of the other. Like, I had my first panic attack while I was a caregiver. One time I was sitting in a doctor's office, and they went and like grabbed the little like things to put on me because my heart rate was so
Oh my God.
jacked up. So and have to pay attention. We all have to kind of pay attention to our own health. But
Yes.
I think the real wake up call for me was, this is not sustainable. I can't keep doing this. It's having an impact on, my kids, my home, my work. Like I kind of went back into low gear at work and kept the lights on, I call it, because I couldn't really like be a superstar, in that at that point. Um, but I really did not want to reproduce the same scenario for my kids
Right.
that was happening, and even my kids were saying, don't do this to us, mom and dad. We see what you're doing here for your parents. Like, we don't want to have to do this for you. So take
Yeah.
care of yourself. And,
Yeah.
yeah. And so
That's a real thing.
it's easier said than done though. You've got to like be
Yeah, that's
really
true.
intentional about it. And that was kind of what made me curious and started writing and talking about it, is like,
Mhm.
okay, I hear what people are saying. They were shooting on me. You should take care of yourself. But like,
Mhm.
what does that really mean when I'm
Mhm.
juggling all of these competing priorities? So it took intention.
No, for sure. Yeah. And like you said, burnout can come in so many forms. And I know I would hear someone say, sometimes the patient, the person you're caring for can outlive you if you're not careful, if you're
Oh
not taking
yeah.
care of yourself. And so it's like while you're trying to, kill yourself trying to do all of this,
Yeah,
come on.
like you're both, it's like trying to save somebody that's drowning,
Hmm.
and instead of the proper way, lay on your belly, do the thing to kind of get them in, they're going to just drag you down underneath. And honestly, I think that's what happened to my dad. I mean, he was the stronger of my parents, and we had kind of always thought in my family like, all right, they're both not doing well. They're both unhealthy.
Hmm.
But dad'll be okay. He's probably going to outlive mom. I mean, these are horrible conversations, but this is real. This is what we
No, for sure.
this is what we talk about. And Nick, he's going to be okay. He knows that, but that's not what happened, because he was the one that was caring for not only my mom, but also I've got a brother that was born with an intellectual disability.
Yeah.
And we just found out recently he's on the autism spectrum. So my dad had his hands full, and he was doing all of the things. And his decline was super quick when it happened. It was like within a month's time, intubated 3 or 4 times, last week on hospice, he's gone.
Yeah.
So yeah, it's for sure what you're saying is that is the risk.
No, for sure. And with the burnout, I think, it's important to address because some people don't realize it, that it comes out in frustration. You're getting frustrated, you're very irritable, you don't have any patience. That's for me when I know that, all right, okay, I need to take it easy because I'm doing too much. I'm doing too much and I'm frustrating myself and I got to step away.
Yeah.
With my friends, tell somebody, hey, you got to take over for a little bit or what, because I can't escape it. But I know that's how the older I get, I notice that starting to come out, and that can lead to guilt too at some point. And I feel guilty for raising my voice. I mean, for heaven's sake, it's my grandmother, right? So you still have to respect your elders. But when you're in that transition, it's like you're the parent, and you just raise your voice, and you're like, oh my gosh, why can't you just do this? I'm telling you this. Why do I got to keep saying it?
Yeah.
Those emotions, I mean, are real, and and unfortunately they're natural, believe it or not. And I know so many people go through that and they're just like, oh, I shouldn't have did that. And it's
I
going to
mean,
happen again if you don't take care of yourself.
well, we're in a no-win situation, really, because like even the people who have a really solid care team of support, like
Mhm.
you're going to be tired, you're going to be hungry, like we're
Yeah.
human beings, like we're going to be crabby, and you are
Mhm.
kind of out in a war zone as a caregiver, like
Right.
day after day after day. It wears you down.
Yeah.
It's a lot, and I think the reasons why we feel guilty about it is that not all guilt is a bad thing, right?
Right.
It can make us be better people, but in this situation, like we feel guilty because we don't want it to be this way. Like, so I
Mhm.
think, you know, when the guilt feelings start to come up at some point, for me, I
Mhm.
had to do this for myself. I, tell and share this with other caregivers. It's like when the guilt comes up, there's nothing I can say to you that's going to make that feeling go away. That it's
Right.
always going to be there. But what you can do is process it differently in your head to say, okay, girl, you're doing a lot. You
Right.
showing up for all these people. You're the one, showing up. You're doing the best that you can with the resources and the information that you have. Give yourself more grace. So guilt comes up, more grace.
Yep.
Um, and it's that self-talk. Like if you can look in the mirror that night and be like, I gave it my all today. Like I did my best. Like what else can you do?
No, for sure. You took the words right out of my mouth. Actually, I was going to say, just look at yourself in the mirror and just allow yourself grace. That's all you can do. I mean, just do
Yeah.
your
It,
best.
I mean,
And
it's we are squeezed between a rock and a hard place. There's just not enough people to help the people that need the help, and the unpaid family caregivers
Mhm.
are filling the gaps of all these things. And so we are so stretched out to the minute. And so it's not our fault. When people
Right.
say take care of yourself, it's like you do want to kind of punch them in the face because you're like,
Yes.
I
Talk
and
about it. Yes.
yeah, yeah, it's like, if
Like I know
unless
that.
if a caregiver says it falls on me better. But if it's
Right.
some person that's like, "Oh, you just need to take care of yourself," like, don't shit on me, don't just say anything, just like, no, until you're in the
Until you live
situation.
this life,
Yes.
I don't have no words for you. I'm gonna respect you, but it's gonna go like this, right on over my head.
Yes.
And so that's why I enjoyed our initial conversation too, because it's always refreshing. And I think, even when you're at the point of burnout and all these different feelings, it's refreshing to talk to someone, that understands and that can relate. Like even when you're working, sometimes it's good to talk to your coworkers when the jobs might
Yes.
nerves and stuff, because they're the only ones that understand. Your family can't understand what you're going through because they're not there with you every day
No.
at the job. So, I mean, that's a real thing, having support, because so many of us caregivers, I know for me, I didn't have any support. I'm the main person. I'm the one that
Mhm.
does the business and the hands-on. And I've seen so many of my friends that have, been introduced into caregiving, and some have support, and the support that they have, they don't really want to do it. They're just doing it to
Reluctant.
yep.
Yeah.
And then the rest of them, yeah, it's hard because you never know what you're going to get. And like I said, it changes just like that. I always say I felt like I was groomed for this, but
I mean, I think some people are more. I think people do have more of a caring gene in some cases. I honestly, and this might surprise people to hear, it's like I'm a better caregiver for the caregivers than I am, for a patient. I'm going to be a tough love person like I was with, my family. I'm still am with my brother.
Mhm.
I'm going to push you so that
Right.
you can do a lot for yourself. And I do think the care recipient can care team, like let them do what they can do for as long as they can do it, because eventually and you're going to have it. And it's almost, and you mentioned like parenting, and it's like, when you're teaching your kids how to make the bed, it doesn't look exactly the way that what you did it, but it's one less thing that you had to do. And eventually they're going to, be okay with it. Now that does change, in this situation, we know eventually we're going to get this task. So it's like, let's not be eager to kind of take it all on. And I resonated with what you said too about work, is like, I felt like work was respite in some ways for me. Like,
Yes.
I knew how to do this job. Like, it could be a really bad day at the office, but I knew that I was going to be able to like eat my own sandwich without having to cut someone else's up. I could have a coffee while checking my email. Like, it was going to be, not interrupted by some of the crazy things that were going on at home, potentially. Now, crises did happen, but
yeah,
it also was a big part of my identity, and it's a huge part of your identity. And so I don't like it when people don't have the choice to keep working if they want to work, because they can't figure out how to pay for care and don't have options for that at home. So, because then we just kick the can of like, we got to pay for our own finances down the road. We're going to live longer. Who knows what's going to happen to us? Like, so that's, yeah, it's a lot.
No, for sure. And just to kind of hone into, let the person be independent for as long as possible. My mom often says, "Oh, well, you spoiled her." What? It wasn't intentional.
Yeah.
But I can be that tough love person too, because I'm like, I know you can do this. Come on, you can do it. You can lift that arm up, or you can pull back those sheets or something. Because they need to be a part of the process too, as well, for as long as possible. And just being resilient is just a lot. It's just I can't say it enough, because it's just no day is the same. You don't know what hat you're gonna wear.
I mean, you've been through the 100% of the hard days that have been behind you. Like, look at all the things, caregiver who's listening, like, look at all the things that you have survived and thrived and figured out, and all the skill sets that you're bringing. Like, I think as working family caregivers, like, I would hire a caregiver in a moment. I only actually, the people I hire to help me on Happy Healthy Caregiver are caregivers, because I want to give them flexible ways to earn a living. But I would hire them in a minute, because they are the people who know how to problem solve, to be diplomatic, to get creative and figure out new things, and decision-making skills and researching. Like, is there anything a caregiver can't do? They're amazing.
No, we rock.
Yeah.
Clear. We rock. We need the shirt.
Yeah, for sure.
No, and so let's talk about now some like self-care strategies. We talked about, having the burnout, having the guilt, and everything that goes along with that. But it's very important for us to, like you said, find ways that we can balance the act. And again, I know it's easier said than done, but if we just challenge ourselves and realize that if we could at least do one thing a day for ourselves, or one thing a month, for ourselves, I think it would, make a difference. And our loved one, even though, like, if let's say they have dementia, for example, obviously, their cognitive may be a little bit off. However, if they were back to themselves, they would want you to have some time to rejuvenate and everything that goes along with that. So knowing that can help you find some comfort in that. But if you want to start off and highlight some of the things that you did and advise.
I mean, I had trouble kind of getting there, right? That I deserve to take care of myself. And so I do think, to your point, like, they would want it for us. They have lived this stage of their life already. They got to live this stage of their life, and what that looked like. And, if you can't do it for yourself, thinking that you're worthy of investing in, then, think about it like, you're not going to be able to keep showing up for all these things that need your help if you don't take some of that nourishment yourself. So I, started to expand my definition of what self-care really was too, because my definition now is like anything that's going to provide me peace of mind, so I can sleep better, I can breathe better, anything that's going to energize me emotionally or physically, or anything that I just find to be pure fun. So those are my self-care things. And at first, when I was on this journey, I was really focused on the physical. Like, we think about eating and walking and exercising, and maybe even sleep didn't even come right away for me. But it's so much more than that. Like, it's the, checking in with yourself to say, like, how are you feeling?
Yeah.
Fine is not a feeling. First of all, like, what is the word? Are you tired? Are you bored? Are you sad? Are you whatever? And then what are the things that you can try in your toolbox to kind of see how you can rectify that and show up differently for yourself and for the people in your life. And so I had to kind of expand beyond the physical. It was like, I need the emotional self-care was big for me. And that's where I started journaling, even just like a little bit of things, or even taking a picture on Instagram and writing something. That is a photo journal, or doing art journaling, and scribbling and doodling. Like, so trying on different things. I got curious about aromatherapy. Anytime someone said they were doing something that they thought made them feel better, I was like, I'm going to try that.
Right.
I'm going to try meditation. I'm going to try sitting out in the sun. I'm going to try taking a nap, or like having a cup of tea. Like, just getting curious, I think, about it was really, really, and I found that like the more intentional and the more curious I was about it, the easier it was to get creative in my day and figure out little teeny tiny things, like, because it's not what the media says. It's not girls' night out and weekends away. Like, we love those. Those are fun.
For sure.
Yeah. But as a caregiver, and especially like an in-home caregiver, that's not real for them to be able to do that kind of stuff. So, can you invite people over to play board games? Can you, do a puzzle with your care recipient? Can you, watch reruns of The Office and have a good belly laugh? Or so thinking about that and figuring out how to infuse those things, and then noticing how they made me feel, and keeping what worked and what didn't. Cause like what's going to work for me is different than what's going to work for you. So what are your tools, CC, that you rely on?
Well, it's funny you said girls' day, because those are some of my things.
I love girls' night out.
Yes,
I
so
love my book club.
I love happy hours,
Yeah.
and it's really about budgeting my time. So, I know I have to get my grandmother tonight. So if I want to do something, I kind of make my appointments around her schedule. And traveling in my mind makes me feel like I'm away, even though it's just physically, even though I'm still having to check my phone, doctors may call, I get blood pressure readings, all those things. So I'm still on, but not on, because my presence is physically away. I feel some type of relief, with that, and being able to, talk to other people, as we mentioned, that go through it. But then, like moms, they always say they want to talk. They don't want to keep talking about kids. They want to talk about something else. So like not talking about, caregiving in a situation sometimes helps me. Like it's a good distraction.
Of
And
course.
uh,
I love all of those things. I think that like it's I heard this analogy and I loved it. It was like it's kind of like taking care of your car, right? Like
yeah.
you need to put gas in your car in order for it to run. And you can do these quick little fill ups, right? But at some point you're going to have to like invest a little more time. You need to like rotate your tires and take it in for maintenance and give it a good car wash and all of that thing. Like we take better of our care of our cars sometimes than we do of ourselves. But I think it's all of these things. It's like little daily fill ups, bigger type of tune ups and events. That really is what kind of paints a really solid picture, I think, for how you can keep living your life and make this sustainable, because you deserve to do that, Cece. You deserve to hang out with your friends and live it up and have a good time doing that.
No, for sure. And then sometimes, for me, it'll also help when I do sometimes do activities with my grandmother, because, and I know that may seem a weird
No.
response for self-care for some people, but one thing I wanted my like my great grandmother, for example, to know, even though she couldn't walk, I didn't want her, in the depression setting, I didn't want her to feel like she still couldn't socialize. So that was something we did together. Like, oh, you want to go to the park, or oh, you want to go to the movies? Okay, well let's go. And doing those type of things, because you want to keep them active and fun too. So I do enjoy doing that type of partnership. Or I take my grandmother, we get pedicures.
Nice.
And, just things like that. And she's never done that before. Her or my great grandmother, they never got their nails or their toes done. So that was a new experience it gave me joy, and rejuvenation, seeing that they were happy.
And it gave them joy. Like I call that I have an activity that they do sometimes on my events called making your joy list. But then when their care recipient it's also on their list, that's a joint joy. So like a Venn diagram where it overlaps. And so there's a lot of things, I think, where we can have that overlap, because I think it's also important to honor the core relationship there. Like she's your grandmother, let's not have to be caregiver all the time. Let's just be, can you just be my grandmother and can we go have ice cream?
All the time. I'm gonna tell this funny story real quick. We went for blood work last week, And she's always like, "Oh, hold my hand." And so we both had to get it. So I said, "Oh," I said, "You gonna hold my hand?" "Oh no, I don't want to look at it." I said, "You the grandmother, you're supposed to help me." Like, what did you forget your role?
Yeah. Can't you hold my hair and close your eyes? Yeah.
Right. So, but I thought that was funny.
Yeah.
Myself, we were laughing at that. I was like, "Girl, come on now." So,
Yeah, I know. There's, you know what, and I look back at these times with my mom and, even with, my brother now, and it's like, it's not all bad. The
no,
caregiving, no, there's a lot of like really fun and joyful things that happen and really, special moments that we, have together. So it's not like it's all drudgery. Um, and so those are the moments that, kind of shine brighter now.
no, for sure. I mean, when my great grandmother passed, I mean, I had her for 10 years as a caregiver. And of course, yes, you're grieving, but at the same time, I found comfort in knowing that I did all I could when I could, and I know that she is grateful for it. And that's what, to me, makes the job of caregiving so worth it.
Yeah.
And I get it, there is a part of grieving as a caregiver that people don't talk about, grieving the independent life,
Mm,
that we once had. And, one day we might have it again, I hope maybe one day, but it is hard, but it's just like, creating that new normal and, with your loved one. And when that time comes without them, you got to find an additional, new normal. So, it's a lot that comes with it from an emotional standpoint too. It's not just the get to act on it.
right.
It's a lot that comes with it for sure. So,
It's
and
life changing. I honestly think like once you're a caregiver, you're always a caregiver because like it changes you.
yeah, I feel like once your family sees you as a caregiver for one, then they just assume for everyone. I'm like, okay,
Oh,
when did I sign up for that? I'm sorry, when did that happen? It's just that natural, place in the family. So, but I did want to also add to the self-care therapy.
yes.
Because, although yes, we talk to our friends, we may talk to our other loved ones as well. I think it's important to, have that objective opinion and somebody that can actually, help you work through certain scenarios and understand, well, why did I react that way in this scenario? So I can say that I do therapy. I've done it in the past and doing it now as well to just help me with my emotions because I'm getting older as well. And
Yeah.
my emotions as I get older are constantly fluctuating, and I need to be able to understand that so it can go along with what my duties as a caregiver for
Yeah.
sure.
No, I think it's important to try on all those things. I mean, there was a point in my life where I needed to have medication to help me,
Hmm.
so I don't think people talk about that a lot. I think like, but to your point, the talk therapy, I think finding your community, whether it's at work, maybe you have an employee resource group, maybe you can check into like there's virtual support groups that are out there for caregivers. And then I think sometimes you can like you mentioned it earlier. Sometimes you don't even want to talk about caregiving. So maybe you
Right.
join the hike club or the biking or the bowling league or the knitting club, whatever it is that
Yeah,
to
that
kind
you're
of
passionate about, so you don't lose yourself
lose
in
yourself.
caregiving. And that's, I think that's the scary part for people too. They're afraid that they're gonna like lose themselves. So, but you don't have to. It's a way to balance them both. You just have to, just know that it's not going to happen immediately. It's going to, take some time to do so. And I wanted to highlight with the support groups, one way to find support groups, as my suggestion is to go through the Department of Aging, your local department, and they have many resources and seminars, workshops, peer groups,
Yep.
etc. You can
The
reach.
area agencies on aging, everybody has one that sometimes it's not called the same thing, which
Right.
is frustrating. I'm a part of a nonprofit called daughterhood.org. We do virtual support groups. I lead one a month, but there's other leaders on there. Sometimes there's local stuff. If you can find support through the chapters of whatever maybe disease or condition that your loved one has. So whether it's cancer or stroke or Alzheimer or any of those things that a lot of times it's out there, but I think that's the frustrating thing, CC, is like it's like another thing we got to do to go
Yeah.
find the stuff that's going to help us. Like, and we need a care team just like our loved one needs a care team. So like your
Right.
friends, your people who love and care about you, like hey, check on me. I don't want to lose myself through this process. Can you be, can you send me a text and check in, or like, I want to make sure that the year doesn't go by and I don't see live music or read a book. Can you just make sure that I'm still doing these things that I love? And
Yeah,
so,
hold me accountable
yeah,
to still being my authentic self and taking care of myself. So it is good to have your friends as the accountability partners, even though they might not understand it, but still take care of me. I'm your friend.
yeah,
you know,
yes. And
help
just
me out. Even if you
show
can't.
up, like just check in with me. I know, there was certainly a time where I would feel not guilty for not seeing my girlfriends enough. And um but I knew they were there when I needed me, and or when I needed them. um but it can be hard, but I think it's reframing some of those things. It's like, instead of doing the things that we always did, maybe you do come and we share a bottle of wine on my back deck or something like that. Like, we might look a little bit different than it looked before, but still, still a way to kind of catch up and be there for me.
No, for sure, for sure. Well, are there any like lasting, tips or strategies that you want to give to our viewers?
I mean, I think we hit on a lot of them, like the community.
Mhm.
I think another big one for me was, especially initially, while I was like figuring it out, learning
Mhm.
how to like walk into a self-care world for myself, was scheduling it. Like, I would schedule twice a week. I'd put time on my calendar. I did it in the mornings. Had a conversation with my husband to be like, I want to like jump up and leave the house, twice a week in the morning, go to a coffee shop,
Mhm.
write. I worked out after, took a shower before I went to work. Like, I just had this, I knew I had these times to myself where I could really just invest in whatever it was that I felt like was gonna serve me well. And if you're not the morning person, then schedule it somewhere else. But I think that, like, making those little appointments for yourself and keeping them, because you deserve the wellness appointment, just like our loved ones do.
No, for sure, for sure. Yes. And like you said, if you're not a morning person, you just do it at night once you put your loved one to bed. That's me. And
Yeah, you're
that's
off
my
duty.
time. Yeah, that's my time for, for me. Or, when she's at daycare or something, so
Mhm.
but the point is, yes, scheduling, because scheduling to put yourself first, otherwise you'll get lost. So scheduling like their doctor's appointments. It's the same type of thing over
Yeah.
there. So
And I think one more thing, like, if I'm imagining people listening to this and being like, oh, easy for them to say this or whatever. And it's like, if you're that person that's listening right now and you don't even think that this is like remotely doable, then
mhm.
we've got bigger things to talk about, which is like,
Yeah,
we've got to figure out how to expand your care team so that you are not drowning, where you can't even feel like you can have an hour to yourself at night before you go to bed, or twice a
and
week. Like, we've got to figure something out here.
yeah, no, and it takes a good point, and it takes time again to get to that where you're like consciously making that effort, to do so on a regular basis. So yeah, if you need additional resources, feel free to reach out to myself, reach out to Elizabeth, and
Yes.
we can help guide you, through what resources in your area that can help you and help make things better for you, because that's what it's all about. We got to stay together and help each other out, because you may experience something that I haven't experienced or haven't yet experienced, and you can
Yeah.
tell me about it, and vice versa. And so we just have to create our own community. Just know that you're not alone. Out
Yeah.
there. We got your back.
We are
So
stronger together, like, we
yeah.
are so much stronger together, yes.
So the bottom line is, just make sure you give yourself a little grace. It's going to be okay. I know it may seem like you're going through the rough times, but just know that there are, resources and support out there. And it might not come always from your friends and family. It might come from other places. So just be open to those things as it comes to you. Okay. And so, Elizabeth, how should they reach you if they want to know more information?
Best place to go is happyhealthycaregiver.com. You'll find it all there, the podcast, the social, the links, whatever. So, and then, yeah, if you want to connect with me through the contact page. So I appreciate that.
Yes, no, awesome. And you all, as I always say, like, comment, and subscribe, and see you